I woke up that morning with a sense of pride and excitement. My younger brother Brandon was finally settling down. The engagement party was set to be the perfect occasion to show my support. After raising him since he was 8, putting him through college, and recently helping him finance that luxury car, I was ready to celebrate his happiness. I had the perfect gift prepared, too, a $10,000 check to help with the car payments. Little did I know how quickly that joy would turn to betrayal. Before I get into what happened at that engagement party, drop a comment letting me know if you have ever had a family member who forgot where they came from. Also hit subscribe if you believe blood is not always thicker than water. Trust me, you will want to see how this one unfolds. I should probably start by explaining the history between my brother and me. Brandon is 12 years younger than me, which basically made me more of a father figure than a brother for most of his life. When I was 20 and Brandon was just 8, our parents died in a terrible car accident coming home from their anniversary dinner. It was the most devastating moment of our lives. I was in my second year of college working toward an engineering degree, but everything changed that night. With no close relatives willing to take Brandon in, I made the hardest and yet easiest decision of my life. I dropped out of college, filed for guardianship, and dedicated myself to raising my little brother. The only thing our parents left us was the modest 3-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood. It was not much, but it was home, and I was determined to keep it that way for Brandon. Those early years were incredibly tough. I worked 3 jobs just to keep food on the table and the lights on. Most days I would start at 5 in the morning at a warehouse rush to a mechanic shop for the afternoon shift, then wait tables at a local diner until closing. I would come home exhausted, help Brandon with his homework if he was still awake, then crash for a few hours before doing it all again. I still remember how Brandon would sometimes wait up for me, his math book open on the kitchen table, determined to show me how he solved some problem. Even when I was dead on my feet, seeing his proud little smile always gave me a second wind. During those moments, I knew every sacrifice was worth it. As Brandon grew into his teen years, I made sure he never felt the financial strain we were under. I always found a way to get him the right clothes for school, to pay for field trips, and to make sure he could join sports teams and other activities. I wanted him to have as normal a childhood as possible, even if that meant I ate ramen noodles 4 nights a week and wore the same 2 pairs of jeans for years. Meanwhile, I taught myself business and accounting skills through library books and free online courses. Eventually, I was able to start a small home repair business that gave us a bit more stability. It was nothing fancy, but it allowed me to be home more often and build something for our future. I postponed my own dreams time and again. There were relationships that fizzled because I could not commit the time or resources. Friendships faded as I missed gathering after gathering. My own education remained on hold indefinitely, but watching Brandon flourish made it all worthwhile. His grades were excellent, he made friends easily, and he seemed happy despite everything we had been through. When Brandon was in his senior year of high school, he got accepted to Westridge University, one of the top schools in the state. I will never forget how his hands shook as he read the acceptance letter out loud in our kitchen. I had been saving for his education since the day I became his guardian, living frugally and putting aside whatever I could. It would be tight, but between my savings, student loans, and a scholarship he earned, we could make it work. That was when things started to change, though I did not see it clearly at the time. At Westridge, Brandon found himself surrounded by wealth for the first time. His roommate was the son of a banking executive. His classmates drove cars that cost more than our house. And in his sophomore year, he met Ashley, a beautiful, sophisticated girl from an extremely wealthy family. I noticed subtle shifts in Brandon during his visits home. He would make comments about how small our house was or how outdated my furniture looked. He started bringing fewer friends around, and when he did, he would give them a kind of apologetic tour, as if he needed to explain away our modest lifestyle. Still, I brushed these things aside. He was young, experiencing a different world, and I figured he would find his balance. I remained his biggest cheerleader, attending every parent weekend, even though I felt wildly out of place among the doctors, lawyers, and executives who comprised the other parents. I sat through uncomfortable dinners with Ashley and her family, enduring their thinly veiled condescension because it mattered to Brandon. After graduation, Brandon landed a position at Hartman and Associates, a prestigious law firm where Ashley's father had connections. It was an amazing opportunity, and I could not have been prouder. I sat in the audience at his graduation ceremony, fighting back tears as he walked across the stage. Despite all the hardships my little brother had made it, he had a bright future ahead of him, and I had kept my promise to our parents to give him every opportunity. Brandon moved back into our family home after college, supposedly to save money while starting his career. I was happy to have him back and never asked for rent or utility contributions. I figured it would help him get established faster, maybe save for his own place or pay down his student loans. In reality, he used that financial freedom very differently. His first paycheck seemed to go entirely toward designer clothes. His second funded a weekend getaway with Ashley. Each month, new expensive purchases would appear, from the latest tech gadgets to luxury watches. When I gently asked about his savings plan, he would laugh it off. "Relax, Justin. I am making good money now. I deserve to enjoy it a little," he would say, before heading out the door to meet Ashley at some exclusive restaurant. What bothered me was not the spending itself, but the attitude behind it. There was no acknowledgement of the foundation that had made his success possible. No offer to contribute to the household, not even a simple thank you. Instead, there was an increasing sense that he was somehow embarrassed by me and our home. Ashley began visiting more frequently, and each time she came, I felt more like an intruder in my own house. She would make subtle suggestions about renovations or furniture that would really update the place. She never addressed these comments to me directly, always speaking to Brandon as if I was not in the room. "Honey, you really should convince your brother to at least remodel this kitchen. It is so retro," she would say, running a manicured finger along my perfectly functional but admittedly dated countertop. Brandon never defended our home or me. Instead, he would nod in agreement later, approaching me with ideas for improvements we could not afford, or that I had no interest in making. The house was paid off comfortable and held the memories of our parents. That was enough for me, but increasingly not for him. The real problems started about 6 months into Brandon's new job. He began asking for loans, small ones at first, with vague explanations about unexpected expenses or temporary cash flow issues. Of course I helped him. Despite the changes in his attitude, he was still my brother, the kid I had raised, and I wanted to support his transition to adult life. But the requests grew larger and more frequent. $2,000 for a vacation deposit, $3,000 for a surprise gift for Ashley. These were substantial amounts for me, but I continued to help always, with the promise that he would pay me back when things settled down. Those repayments never materialized. Then came the dinner where Brandon announced he was planning to propose to Ashley. I was genuinely happy for him, despite my reservations about her and her family's influence on him. He was nervous but excited, sharing his elaborate proposal plans and how he wanted everything to be perfect. "The only thing is," he said, pushing his food around his plate, "Ashley has always dreamed of her fiancé picking her up in a really special car on the day of the engagement party. Her dad did that for her mom, and it is kind of a family tradition." I nodded, not yet seeing where this was heading. "So I found this perfect car," he continued, pulling out his phone to show me. It was a brand new luxury sedan, sleek and undoubtedly expensive. The problem is the down payment. They want $50,000 up front, and I just do not have that kind of cash yet. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. $50,000, Brandon. That is a huge amount of money. I know, he said quickly, but I have done all the math. With my salary and upcoming bonuses, I can definitely handle the monthly payments. I just need help with the down payment. It is an investment in my future with Ashley. I sat in stunned silence, trying to process what he was asking. $50,000 was nearly all of my business emergency fund money I had spent years accumulating for security. "That is a lot to think about," I said carefully. "Have you considered something less expensive? Or maybe waiting until you have saved more?" His face fell immediately. "Justin, you do not get it. This is important. Ashley's family has expectations. Her dad is already skeptical about me being good enough for her." There was an edge of desperation in his voice that worried me. Was this really about a car, or was there something deeper happening? Was he trying to buy his way into acceptance from her family? Let me think about it. I told him, though, in my heart, I already knew I would probably help him. Not because of Ashley or her family's expectations, but because I had spent my entire adult life putting Brandon's needs first. It was a hard pattern to break. 2 days later, I transferred the $50,000 to his account. He was ecstatic, promising to pay me back, assuring me this would be the last big thing he would ever ask for. I smiled and wished him luck with the proposal, ignoring the knot of anxiety in my stomach. Ashley said yes, of course. The expensive ring, the fancy car, the promise of joining her world of privilege, all exactly as planned. The engagement party was scheduled for 3 weeks later at the Oakwood Country Club, where her family were longtime members. I received an official invitation embossed on thick cream paper. There was no mention of bringing a guest, though Brandon knew I had been dating someone new. When I asked about it, he seemed uncomfortable. The thing is, Justin's space is really limited, and Ashley's parents have a very specific vision for the guest list. Mostly family and close friends from their circle. I did not push the issue. This was his special day, and I did not want to create problems. Instead, I focused on finding the perfect gift. After much thought, I decided to contribute $10,000 toward the car payment. It was generous, meaningful, and I hoped it would help ease his financial burden as he planned for the wedding. The night before the party, I wrote out a check and placed it in a simple but elegant card. I felt good about the gift, excited to publicly show my support for my brother and his new beginning. I went to sleep that night with no idea how dramatically things were about to change. The engagement party was held in the grand ballroom of the Oakwood Country Club, a place so luxurious it made me feel underdressed despite wearing my best suit. Crystal chandeliers hung from coffered ceilings and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked manicured gardens. Everything screamed old money and exclusivity. As I entered, I searched for Brandon, but did not see him immediately among the crowd of about 40 people. I recognized a few faces from photos Brandon had shown me Ashley's parents. With their perfectly maintained appearances, her brother with his boarding school posture, various aunts and uncles who all seemed to share the same disapproving expression. A waiter offered me champagne, which I gratefully accepted, needing something to do with my hands. I stood awkwardly near the entrance, feeling increasingly out of place. No one approached me or introduced themselves. I was clearly not part of the inner circle this event was designed for. Finally, Brandon appeared looking handsome and confident in an expensive new suit. Ashley was on his arm, radiant in a designer dress that probably cost more than 3 months of my mortgage payments. I smiled and moved toward them, gift in hand. "Justin, you made it," Brandon said, as if there had been some doubt. His smile seemed genuine, but there was a tension around his eyes. I recognized from childhood when he was nervous about something. "Would not miss it," I replied, giving him a quick hug. "Congratulations to both of you. The place looks amazing." Ashley's mother handled all the arrangements, Brandon explained, glancing around with obvious pride at being associated with such opulence. Ashley offered her cheek for a kiss. "So nice you could join us, Justin. Brandon has told us so much about you and how you looked after him." There was something in her tone that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. As if my raising my orphaned brother was some quaint, slightly distasteful hobby rather than a life-altering commitment of love. "Family takes care of family," I said simply. A slight awkward silence followed before Brandon cleared his throat. "Well, we need to greet some other guests. The gift table is over by the window. Help yourself to food and drinks." And just like that, they moved on, leaving me standing alone again. I watched as they circulated through the room, Brandon transforming into someone I barely recognized. The way he laughed too loudly at jokes from Ashley's father, the affected accent, he seemed to be developing the subtle distancing from anything associated with our shared past. For the next hour, I drifted around the edges of the party, making occasional small talk with the few guests who deigned to acknowledge me. I overheard snippets of conversation about vacation homes in Aspen, private school applications, and stock portfolios. Not a single person asked what I did for a living or showed any interest in getting to know Brandon's only family. The formal dinner was equally uncomfortable. I was seated at a table far from the happy couple, with what appeared to be other obligation invites, older relatives, and work associates no one really wanted to talk to but could not exclude. The food was exquisite, but I barely tasted it, increasingly aware of how thoroughly Brandon had compartmentalized his life with me, firmly boxed away in a section he no longer wanted to open. After the meal came the moment for speeches and gift presentations. Ashley's father went first, raising a toast to the couple and announcing his gift, a down payment on a house in their exclusive neighborhood. The room erupted in applause. Next came her mother presenting keys to a vacation property in the Bahamas, followed by her brother offering shares in the family business. Each gift was more extravagant than the last, accompanied by warm insider jokes and references to family traditions. When it came time for me to present my gift, I approached the small podium with my heart pounding. This was my chance to show Brandon how much he meant to me despite the growing distance between us. Brandon has been more than just my brother. I began, my voice steadier than I expected. After we lost our parents, we became our own little family, supporting each other through good times and bad. Nothing makes me happier than seeing him find love and build a new chapter in his life. I glanced at Brandon, hoping to see some recognition of our shared journey, but his expression was strained, almost embarrassed. Ashley was whispering something in his ear, and her parents were exchanging glances. Pushing aside the hurt, I continued. To help start this new chapter, I would like to present a gift of $10,000 toward payments on the new car that means so much to both of you. I held out the envelope with the check, expecting at least polite appreciation. Instead, there was an awkward silence. Brandon looked at the envelope as if I was handing him a dead fish. After a painfully long moment, he took it and opened it with obvious reluctance. When he saw the amount, something shifted in his expression. It was subtle but unmistakable. A flash of disappointment followed quickly by something harder, almost contemptuous. He showed the check to Ashley, whose perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose slightly. 10,000, Brandon repeated, his voice carrying an edge I had never heard before. He gave a short laugh that contained no actual humor. That is, thoughtful Justin. Though, to be honest, with the wedding costs coming up, 20,000 would be more helpful if you really want to secure your invitation. The room went completely silent. 40 pairs of eyes shifted between us, many widening in shock at such a baldly mercenary statement. I stood frozen, the words hitting me like physical blows. Not just the request for more money, but the implication that my presence at his wedding was conditional on financial contribution. That my value as his brother, his family, the person who had raised him, was measured purely in dollars. In that terrible crystalline moment, I saw the truth with absolute clarity. The brother I had sacrificed everything for was gone, replaced by someone who viewed me as nothing more than an ATM with an inconvenient emotional attachment. Every late night I had spent helping with homework, every meal I had skipped so he could have new shoes, every dream I had deferred, all of it meant nothing to him now. Something broke inside me then, but something else, something stronger, was finally set free. I felt a strange calm settle over me as I reached for the check that he still held loosely in his hand. Brandon let me take it, a smirk starting to form, probably assuming I was going to replace it with a larger amount. Instead, I tore it in half, then quarters, then let the pieces flutter to the floor between us. The sound of tearing paper seemed unnaturally loud in the silent room. Brandon, I said quietly, reaching into my inside jacket pocket. I have been carrying this for over a week, debating whether it was the right thing to do. I pulled out an official-looking document folded neatly into thirds. What is that? He asked, the smirk faltering. This is a formal 30-day notice to vacate the property at 1842 Maple Street, I said, my voice now carrying easily across the hushed room. My property, which you have been living in rent-free for the past 2 years while spending money on everything except contributing to the household or repaying the $50,000 I lent you for that car. His face drained of color. You cannot be serious. Start packing. I continued, placing the notice in his hand where the check had been. You have 30 days. I turned to leave, acutely aware of the 40 witnesses to this family implosion. As I reached the doorway, I heard Ashley's mother whisper loudly enough to carry, "You never told us you did not own your house, Brandon." And with that final indignity ringing in the air, I walked out into the cool night, leaving behind the brother who had forgotten who he was and who had helped him get there. The aftermath was exactly as chaotic as you might expect. My phone blew up with messages and calls from Brandon ranging from furious accusations to tearful pleas. Ashley's father even called once attempting to negotiate as if this was some business dispute that could be settled with the right offer. I did not answer most of these communications. The few times I did speak with Brandon, I kept it factual and direct. Yes, the eviction notice was legal and binding. No, I would not extend the deadline. Yes, he still owed me the $50,000 for the car, which was now documented as a formal loan with repayment terms. But where am I supposed to go, he demanded during one particularly heated phone call. Do you expect me to live in some crappy apartment after everything I expect you to live within your actual means? I replied calmly. Just like I have been doing while supporting both of us all these years. This is about Ashley is not it, he accused. You have never liked her. You are jealous that I found someone from a good family that I am moving up in the world, while you are still running your little handyman business. His words stung, but they also confirmed I had made the right decision. This is not about Ashley, I told him. This is about respect, gratitude, and understanding the difference between being supported and being entitled. You have 30 days, Brandon. I suggest you start looking for that apartment. The day Brandon moved out was surreal. He had hired movers for his extensive collection of designer clothes, electronics, and the various luxury items he had accumulated. Ashley supervised from a distance, clearly unhappy about their new living situation. A one-bedroom apartment that was actually quite nice, but far below what she had envisioned for her engaged life. As the last box was loaded, Brandon approached me one final time. His expression was a complex mix of anger, confusion, and something that might have been the beginning of understanding. I do not know why you are doing this to me, he said, his voice quieter than it had been in weeks. After everything we have been through together. That is exactly the point, I replied. After everything we have been through together, you still do not see me as anything more than a resource to be used. You needed to learn that family is about more than what you can get from someone. He shook his head, unable or unwilling to accept this perspective. The wedding is still happening, but on a much smaller scale now. I am guessing you do not want an invitation anymore. Send it if you want a brother there, I said. Do not if you just want another gift. He did not respond, just turned and walked to his luxury car, the one that had been the catalyst for this final breach. As he drove away, I felt an overwhelming mix of emotions, grief for what was lost, guilt for what some might see as harsh measures, but also surprisingly relief. For the first time in over 20 years, I was free to focus on my own life, my own needs, my own future. The initial weeks after Brandon moved out were difficult. I wandered the too quiet house, second-guessing my decision, wondering if I had been too harsh. But gradually, I began to reclaim my space and my time. I renovated Brandon's old room into a home office for my growing business. I started dating more seriously, no longer constrained by responsibilities to my brother. I learned that Brandon and Ashley had postponed their wedding indefinitely. Her parents, upon learning the full financial situation, had strongly encouraged her to reconsider the relationship. According to mutual acquaintances, they were still together, but on rocky ground with Ashley, increasingly dissatisfied with their scaled-back lifestyle. 6 months turned into a year. My business flourished as I dedicated more time to it. I met Laura, a kind and grounded woman who appreciated my history of family commitment rather than seeing it as something embarrassing. For the first time in my adult life, I started thinking about my own future, my own dreams, my own happiness. Then, one rainy Sunday afternoon, there was a knock at my door. Brandon stood on the porch without the designer clothes, without the flashy watch, without the arrogant posture he had adopted during his time with Ashley. He looked more like the brother I remembered, though, older, more worn around the edges. "Can I come in?" he asked simply. Over coffee at the same kitchen table where we had done his homework years ago, Brandon offered something I had stopped expecting: a genuine apology. Ashley had left him when her family cut off their financial support. His job was secure, but the lifestyle he had been maintaining was completely unsustainable without help. He had been humbled by the experience of actually living within his means, of facing consequences, of losing the artificial respect that came with projected wealth. "I did not understand what you did for me," he admitted, staring into his coffee cup. "Not just the money, but the sacrifice. I took it for granted because it was always just there like air. I did not rush to forgive him, or to pretend everything was suddenly fixed. Rebuilding trust would take time. But it was a start, an opening for a new kind of relationship built on mutual respect rather than dependency. Over the following months, we slowly reconstructed our connection. Brandon found a more modest apartment closer to my house. He started making small but regular payments toward the car loan. More importantly, he began showing up as a brother in ways he never had before, helping with projects around the house, checking in regularly, listening to my experiences and challenges for the first time. Looking back now, I realize that the hardest moment at that engagement party was actually the beginning of healing for both of us. Brandon needed to learn the value of what he had been given, and I needed to learn that true love sometimes means setting boundaries, even painful ones. Sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most important growth. I never stopped loving my brother. I just finally learned to love myself, too. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with someone you love? Did it change your relationship for better or worse? Leave a comment below sharing your experience. If this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. It helps more people find these stories of family forgiveness and finding your worth. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, true family is built on respect, not obligation or convenience. I will be back next week with another story that might just change how you see your own relationships.